What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video on What If Deku Was the Avatar Part 8. Now, where we last left off, Deku was sitting in the Avatar world, twiddling his thumbs, wondering how his normal trip to the spirit world, the train, became him going over to the other world. Eventually, Chief Payphone came back in with a girl that looked very similar to a girl Deku knew. Deku instantaneously stood up when he recognized, and he's like, Korra, it's you! But I didn't call you, as he said as he kind of starts tilting his head. Korra, being the avatar of this world, looks at Deku and is like, so he's the other avatar you said? Yes, Chief Payphone responds. But it doesn't seem to be fake. And Deku's like, wow, Korra, you look a lot different. And Korra looks back at Deku, wondering what he meant by looking a lot different. And Deku stated, well, you look a little bit weaker. Korra chuckles, yeah, after being poisoned, I guess that happens to you. And Deku is like, oh, and you look more older and mature. Korra was kind of confused by this. She's like, well, how do I look to you? And Deku says, well, like you're 18? Maybe 19? Huh. So about the time of age I was when I was separated from the avatars in the past. But I reconnected with Rava. So, how are you here? Wait, so you have a Rava inside you too? Deku asked confusingly. This caught Korra even more off guard, saying, what do you mean, in you too? And Deku responded, saying, well, I have a Rava in me, and I have all the previous avatars. They've been teaching me how to use the bending types in my world. My world, bending doesn't exist, but we have things called quirks exist there. And because of it, learning certain bending types that previous avatars did not know, such as combustion bending, was very difficult, especially learning lava bending. Well, lava bending was pretty easy, but combustion bending was horrible. Like, I mean just horrible. I had to ask my friend Bakugo to get in, and he's basically a human grenade. You guys do know what grenades are, right? And Korra looks at Deku very confusingly, and she's like, no, what's a grenade? And Deku says, think of combustion bending, but in a very close range and up front in your face. So, unlike combustion bending we know, which is long range, it's a close range variation of it. Yeah, basically. And because of me observing Bakugo as he did this, I eventually ended up understanding how combustion bending worked, I guess you can say. It's more like I stumbled upon it luckily, thinking about how firebending worked, and then it just bing bang bomb zap, and I was able to use it. Huh. So, does that mean you were inherently an earthbender? Yeah, you're the one who told me that I was an earthbender, or the earthbending avatar, the next one in the cycle. Korra once again looked confusedly at Deku, like, I told you? And Deku's like, yeah. As Deku calmly sits there and puts his hands together in the fist position that Aang tend to sit in, he summoned forth Korra from himself. And she's like, yo, kid, I heard the situation. Wow, there is actually another me, she says, looking towards Korra. Korra looks back at Korra. Korra looks back at Spirit Korra, who is sitting in the chair, and just in all shock. And she's like, it's me. Spirit Korra's like, yeah, I'm you. I'm not anyone else, am I? Korra is still shocked at this and is like, how? And then Spirit Korra kind of explained. She's like, well, so far, the combining avatar conscious kind of came to the conclusion that when you were separated from Rava, us and half of Rava ended up rounding up in the My Hero verse, or as we call it, the My Hero verse, while the other half fused back with you, and that's why Rava was so much smaller and different looking. Huh. So he has connections to all the previous avatars. Yep, including Avatar Aang. But it should work for you. You should be able to kind of be the next first avatar, and your spirit, well, my spirit, our spirit, the future of our spirit, the past, the spirit you have should be able to continue to exist in your avatar. So let me get this straight. He's an avatar from a different dimension that does not have bending, but has all the previous avatars from our dimension thanks to the split happened when I was fighting Unalak back in the spirit world, causing the second half to split off and go into the My Hero verse, or the Heroverse as y'all call it, causing this boy to become an avatar. Yeah. Wow. You know what? I'm honestly impressed. And Cora's like, yeah, I was kind of impressed too after we found out that we're in two totally different universes. It was kind of weird. Cora just took a deep breath. He's like, okay. Well then. So, kid, you're another avatar? Yeah, I can bend all four of the elements. Okay. So, I have no clue what to do. What should I do? How do we do this? Well, we could always just send the kid back. Yeah, but I want to show him around. I'm going to show him around. Okay. Deku started to follow Cora. Cora led Deku to this weird temple-like place, which Deku remembered from Ain's memories. This is an air temple by the air nomads, am I correct? Yeah. I didn't think you would know that. Well, Ain taught me a lot about history. He said it was important for the avatars to know the past. So Ain taught me about how the whole entire avatar cycle worked and the air genocide, to be exact. Deku walked up and entered the temple of Cora. There were 3 kids sitting there, and an older man and a female and a baby in the female's hands. The old man, who was bald and had a beard, said, Cora, what brings you here? Cora responds, oh, nothing, just showing the newbie around. And Deku looks up at the man. He's like, hello, my name is Izuku Midoriya. How is your day? And Tenzin's like, good. Cora, what do you mean by showing the newbie around? Cora's like, well, Tenzin, you won't believe this. Cora told Izuku to sit down and chat with the other ones. He met the 2 daughters of Tenzin as well as the son and realized that Jinora, the oldest one, was the farthest along in airbending. He asked Jinora if she could help him master airbending. He was a little bit off and he understand most things. Physics did make it easier to understand things. And Janora's like, physics? What's that? And Deku's like, you guys don't have physics? As they suddenly heard Tenzin from the room say, what? What was that? Cora tells Tenzin, calm down. This is not a situation to yell for. There are 2 avatars now, and you're telling me that there's not a situation to yell for? Jinora, hearing this, looked at Deku weirdly, and Deku kind of embarrassedly turned around. Jinora responded, what? Are you an avatar? And Deku responded, yeah? And Jinora kind of freaked out, and so did the other 2. The other 2 were mostly keeping to themselves. But once they heard this, they really couldn't. The smaller boy asked, so you can bend all 4 of the elements? And Deku said, yeah, I can. Well, at least I know I can bend 3 of them. For sure. Ain said I should be able to bend water just fine. And Korra hasn't taught me water yet, so I really couldn't do much. I was actually training airbending before coming here. And Janora's like, oh, you've been training airbending? Yeah, and an experimental bending type. But I can't explain that one yet. And Janora's like, oh, an experimental. Yeah, it has to do with physics. So, explaining it when it makes sense, I would have to give you a crash course in how physics work and simple science and air molecules and particles and everything else before I explain it to you. Nice. So Janora stands up and she's like, so do you want to have a bout with me? Deku said, oh, okay, sure. I'll only use airbending. I think it would be fair that way. Janora's like, yeah, I guess it would be fair. Because if the claim is true and you can use 3 different bending elements currently because you haven't mastered water, then yeah, only using air would be kind of fair. Deku and Janora looked at each other. The arena was pretty big. They had gone outside for it. Janora started off by simply sending light wind gusts towards Deku's direction. Deku easily dodged them. Then Deku followed up by using his, as he called it, air cutting, which is when he compressed the air into a blade-like shape and fired it at his opponents. Janora saw this and she was kind of confused. She's like, what kind of airbending technique is this? And Deku stated, this is one of the techniques I have been working on. It's called air cutter. Now you see, air cutter is a special technique where you compress the air molecules in the air and to make them very dense, allowing the air to be thicker than usual, causing it to make a cutting motion, also allowing it to cut the enemy. Janora was kind of shocked. This was a very dangerous form of airbending that she hadn't seen before. Deku said, don't worry about it. I purposely made sure they're not too deep to where they would actually harm you too much. And at worst case scenario, I could start learning healing and heal you with water bending. So, I think it's a win-win. Janora sighs at this, thinking, just what kind of world did this boy grow up in? First, he finds out that he's an avatar, and the second one in the same era as that. Not to mention that he was able to make an art such as airbending, which had almost 0 to none lethal techniques, to an actual lethal degree. Like, this could easily be used for damaging. Deku then quickly, using airbending, shot himself forward, once again surprising Janora, who quickly air gusted out of the way to flip around him. Deku kind of sighed at this as he turned around to see Janora behind him. Janora's like, a simple air gust sent you that far? And Deku stated, well, you see, actually what happened was that I made a circular tube of compressed air beneath my feet to make it exactly positioned to off the ground. I made it so compressed that I could physically stand on it. Then I created a vacuum by pushing the air molecules that were inside of it outside of it to create an empty space. And then, suction cupping it down, I quickly let out a large burst of air, which got sucked even more into the area by the vacuum itself, sending me flying. Janora once again looked at Deku very confusedly. Deku explained, airbending's starting to become one of my favorites. Janora's like, yeah, I can see. It seems like you have a very low control over airbending. Well, yes, you gotta remember, my airbending is completely different than yours. Yours is rooted in spirituality, while mine's is taking more of a scientific approach. Science? I have heard a little bit about this there and then, especially with the new mechs that were rolled out earlier last year, as well as the other events that happened. Whatever. Janora started to use more basic airbending attacks, firing more of them at Deku, but Deku was dodging them every time. One of Janora's attacks were about to hit, but it just didn't go through. This surprised Janora, and she's like, what happened to my attack? Deku explained, well, I'm not going to go through the same explanation over and over again. Basically, think of compressed air to be more of a akin to water bending than instantaneously changing it to ice. I compressed the air into a shield-like shape, which had enough ability to deny your attack. Jinora was shocked by this, but thanks to Deku being able to very well visualize his attacks, he was able to do it without even much movement. Almost like he was bending with his mind. Jinora only knew of a few benders that could do it, and most of them were benders that didn't have their arms. Of course, there was the occasional ones that did have their arms, like Tarlock, but even then, that was a rare oddity at that. Deku's like, okay, should I ramp this up? And Jinora's like, ramp this up? What is he on about? Deku then quickly lunged at Jinora, holding his fist out like he was about to punch her. Jinora prepared to dodge, but she felt a change in air pressure and she was confused. Before she knew it, cuts started to appear all over her. Jinora was amazingly confused. She asked, "What did you just do?" Deku explained, "Well, you see, what happened was that I made more of a circular motion. I made a cylindrical tube around my arm. And then I made it to where it would soften up around areas around where I want to attack you and go straight through. So, when your arm got cut, I purposely made it so your arm would be able to pass through until a certain point where I locked it in. And then after locking it in, I made multiple small razor-sharp blades inside that tube, causing them to spin at a very rapid rate, causing massive damage to the arm." Jinora looked at her right arm that had just been attacked. She could see tons of tiny, small cuts all over her arm. This freaked Jinora out. Realizing that the situation she was in, she had lost. So she raised up her arm and said, "I lost." It was a fair enough fight to begin with. By this time, Tenzin had come out, and he had only seen the end bit of it. And Korra did too, and Korra was impressed, like, the kid's got moves. And Tenzin's like, "What did you use against my daughter?" Deku walked over to Korra and asked, "Korra, can you teach me how to heal people using water?" And Korra's like, "Why should I do that?" "The other you was way more helpful." Other Korra, as the blue spirit form Korra appears. "Can you teach me how to heal people with water bending?" "Yeah, sure. I have no clue what you were talking about when you were using air bending, but sure." Tenzin looked at the cut on his daughter's arm and all over her body, and he was like, That was air bending?" Deku responded, "Yes, it's a complex form of airbending, though. An airbending form that most people wouldn't be able to understand in this universe. But thanks to my own universe, I was able to understand it and know how airbending works on a fundamental level." So yes, okay, I'm going to pause right here and say, yes, I know bending is spiritual, bending is energy-based, but I'm going to have it rooted in physics. So in other words, yes, Deku can create fire, but he burns up oxygen by sucking in oxygen, nitrogen, and adding heat to it. That's why when he was training with Bakugo, he was better at able to understand how to use explosions. Now, electrical, he had to align his energy, which meant that he had to control his energy, and that's why he got it quickly when he learned about combustion bending, which was just massively disrupting your energy. Because he's using his energy as a fuel for his attacks. So, it is physics-based. Yes, I'm making bending physics-based. That means, yes, he could technically do sound bending. I do read the comments. But I can't tell you exactly who commented right now because the name had slipped my mind. It was just inside my head. But yes, he can do bending of that degree. I am not gonna lie. And if you don't like this, then I am very sorry about it. There isn't much I can do about you not liking how I decide how bending works. I know it sounds horrible, but that's just the honest-to-God truth. Now, back into the video. Tenzin was very confused by this, because he's like, "You were using airbending?" Yes. As I already explained, airbending is a different type of bending. What do you mean? Well, see, airbending itself is pretty weak and doesn't have any offensive abilities. But, see, what happened is that thanks to the capability of me knowing how airbending actually works, that it allowed me to actually, like, use it better, I guess I should explain. And Tenzin looked kind of confused by this. And he's like, so do you know how to use all the bendings? Yes. It's confusing. But yes. What does that mean? Well, I guess to explain this in the best and easiest way is that he literally probably won't be able to understand. Okay, I understand that. You already stated that. But how does it work? Fine, I'll tell you. This is exactly how it works, okay? I compress the air molecules in the air, and molecules are tiny balls made up of multiple different atoms. Atoms are even smaller balls that are made up of 3 different types of components, which are protons, neutrons, and electrons, which when combined with a certain amount of protons and electrons and neutrons will equal atoms. Atoms also have variations of them called isotopes that you have to look out for, because combining too many isotopes can make the density of the air too thick, and combining too little isotopes can make it too light. So, getting the exact way to do it, then I can actually work it out. And basically, he was just confused. Like, he didn't even know what to say. Like, there's nothing to say because all this information that just came flying at him like that, he can't do anything about it. Okay. Well, this new form of airbending appeared to be pretty good. Yeah. But it could be better, though. I'm still not really well at using it. Like, I can imagine stuff pretty accurately, but I can't imagine it to the best. I guess it also does help that I had used multiple different bending arts. So when it came around to just using airbending, it became quite simple. Yeah, I guess using water and earth bending might have helped with that. And Deku said, no, I'm talking about lava bending. Lava bending and water bending helped out a lot. Lava bending? Isn't that rare bending element that only a few earthbenders can use? Yeah. And Korra said, you can use lava bending? Yes, Deku said as he quickly picks up a rock and transforms it into lava and then starts spinning it at a quick motion. So, to give a visual representation of what my airbending basically did, is that when I was in attack mode, Deku said, as he morphs it into a crescent-shaped blade, this would be my wind slice. As you can see, it's in a crescent shape, and the tip is very well, I guess how you would say, sharp. So it would quickly cut. And then Deku formed it into his attack he used at the end. And this was the attack I used at the end. As you see, it's a circular tube that has blades inside. So when the opponent's arm went inside, it would quickly cut up the opponent's arm, causing massive damage to it, internally and externally. Korra was kind of impressed, like, wow, this kid is pretty smart. He knows how to use airbending even better than me. And airbending was meant to be his negative trait. Korra's like, I like you, little dude. And Deku said, thank you, Korra. It's kind of weird hearing you say that when you just literally talked to you earlier God, talking to multiple different cores at once is so confusing, Deku said as he lets out a sigh. Korra then went over to Tenzin and it's like, Tenzin, you saw what this boy is capable of. Not only did he just earthbend in front of you, but he also lava bend, and you saw the airbending, if we can even call it that, earlier. If you don't want to call it airbending, then I guess you can just call it air compression bending, because the basic art of air compression bending is compressing air to make it more solid to allow quicker and stronger attacks. Okay, whatever. And then Korra asked Tenzin, oh yeah, can you stay here for a night? Tenzin was like, sure, why not? And that's where we're going to leave it off, guys. Once again, I'm very sorry if you don't like that I'm rooting this in physics. But I feel like in a world with physics that has magic, it would make more sense, you know? And I did kind of already state that physics did play a small role when I said the laws of conservation of energy, what goes in must come out at the same amount. So, at least I'm pretty sure I said that in one of my previous videos. So, if you liked it, hit the like button. And if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And until next week, goodbye. Oh God, my bad, guys.